What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here for Adorama TV with the new Pro official flagship for Nikon's full-frame mirrorless system, the Z9, along with the 100-400 f4.5 to 5.6, the 24-120 f4 lens I have long awaited. In fact, most of this episode has been shot with that lens, and a new FTZ adapter. You're gonna see some amazing pros that we scrounged up for this video today use for both photo and video. We're gonna try this out with some sports, of course. It's a pretty fast acting camera with some really high res and fast frame rates. So we're gonna look at some tennis. We're gonna try it out on some wedding shots. We're gonna look at the dynamic range, the color, all that stuff right here today. Let's go take a look. We're here at an undisclosed location right here in Long Island. We can't miss. It's gorgeous out here. We got great talent, we got some great people, and we have a pretty great camera as well. Let's go take a look.
So we're out here today doing a test shoot. We shot some tennis, we shot some wedding photographs. I was really excited to challenge this camera as a sports photographer in tennis. I wanted to check out the autofocus speed, the frame rate speed, the images, and I was really super excited to see the EVF is blackout free, and I can see what I'm shooting, and I don't feel like I'm missing any moments at all. As a longtime sports photographer, I grew up on DSLRs and mechanical shutters. So to give me a camera with an electronic shutter and say to me, it's going to be just as good. We already talked about how impressed I am with the blackout-free EVF, and now I have an electronic shutter. So when I'm shooting the tennis players, I'm seeing no distortion as they take the racket from the back and swing it to the front. Those are the kinds of things, as I move from a mechanical shutter to an electronic shutter, that I'm concerned about. Having shot this camera and done the tennis, not really seeing any evidence of that at all. I really like this camera. I love the way it feels in my hands. One of the things that I wanted to test in the tennis especially was the ability to record a number of frames in a series. So I had one of the players shoot a backhand and then take 2 steps up, hit an approach shot, and then a volley. And watching the autofocus track her eyes as she moved from the baseline towards the net and getting every frame sharp was really impressive to me. That's better than I could do before this camera. I also wanted to see the ability of the autofocus to track during, while she was swinging her racket. And what happens there is a camera can be easily distracted as the racket passes in front of the player's face. And this camera just tracked on eyes, the racket came, it stayed there, and that was really impressive to me. Another thing that really impresses me is the ability of the camera to buffer frames, especially in RAW, where I'm at 20 frames a second. It has virtually an unlimited buffer. As far as I was concerned, shooting the tennis player, going from baseline to net, just continuously hammering on this camera, watching it keep focus, and then watching it buffer all those frames without delay, which means when I take it to a football game and that kick returner takes it 5 yards deep in the goal line and winds his way through players and goes 100 yards for a touchdown, I'm going to have every single frame as a RAW and as a JPEG, and I don't have to worry about the buffer. And then if I want to go to 30 frames per second and get full res JPEGs, I have that ability, which is great for baseball, great for tennis, great for golf. And talking about golf, I also have the silent shutter mode, which is terrific because in golf, every little sound magnifies. You're not supposed to be making any sound when they hit the ball. This camera will allow me to shoot a backswing, down into contact, and follow through silently.
Over the last year, I've become fully a mirrorless photographer. I love all of the technology and how much mirrorless cameras has helped my videography and photography come to a different level. When I first got my hands on the Z9, it was like I felt all that technology from the mirrorless cameras, but I also got to reminisce and I felt a lot of what I missed from my D5 and my D850. So it's got all this new technology as well as all the things I was missing from my DSLRs. One of the things I love when doing video is using different layers to add depth to my shots. I remember shooting with this earlier today, the Z9, and shooting through the net. So I wanted that net in the foreground, but the camera was smart enough to even see the eyeball through the net of the player on the other side of the court and follow them back and forth, which gave me that awesome extra layer that didn't distract the focus or pull it away from what I was trying to keep sharp, which was the player. One of the things that I love about photography is it takes these instants of time and lets us capture and keep those. Slow motion video alters time and lets us see things that we may not see with our own eyes, like the way a tennis ball reacts when it bounces on a clay court. It helps us see these details, especially with the 4K. 120 at 4K is one of my new favorite things because it reveals life, time, and details in new ways. Something that I really like is being able to capture footage in 8K, which means that you can get tighter and more details once you crop down and have your final output in 4K. So having that bigger frame size gives us so much more information that we've got a lot of flexibility in our edit. One of the first features that I noticed was the enhanced autofocus system, especially for doing video. The way it can track an eye, and an eye for people moving close to me, moving away from me. I'm really obsessed with shooting wide open, so even at 1.2 on this 50mm lens, the eye was tracking as the bride was walking towards me, which I was so excited about. But at the same time, like, if the groom comes in and whenever he stood in a way that blocked the bride, and if I pivoted, the camera would automatically detect a different dominant eye and it would focus in on the groom. So it's smart enough to shift that focus, which is something that in videography you used to need all sorts of rings and adapters and you know, to have that sort of sharp focus shift so quickly is something that I'm really stoked about. I always like capturing things at different angles, and it's really nice to have a back screen that I can use in different angles. So when I was photographing the tennis, I was able to put the camera right above the racket and shoot in a direction and an angle that I can't put my body into. I also tend to roll around a little bit. And so it's always nice to have a pop-out screen. So if I don't want to put my whole body in clay, which I kind of did anyways today, but for those moments that I have to stay clean, I can definitely put the camera lower and use that pop-out screen to get low angles. It's nice to have the versatility of the high, the low, and all the angles in between. Everything I captured today, from the 4K slow motion to the 8K, was all in camera. I had no need for an external device or anything like that, so being able to get that sort of information on my CF Express card, pretty awesome.
That's going to do it for us here today with the Nikon Z9, all these lenses and some amazing pros. I want to thank Rod, Mar, Kristi, Odom for hanging out with us today and trying out all this stuff. I want to thank Nikon for getting us a crack at the gear itself. And I want to thank you guys for watching. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, hit us with a comment down below. We'll do our best to answer it. But if you want to know any more about the specs, deep dive, get nerdy about it, hit the links in the description. But for now, hit like, share this video around, hit subscribe, plus the bell to get notified when more videos like this come out. And I'll see you guys next time. Later.
Good. Should I take my jacket off and just pop the guns?